in some cases, the survivors are right. He does camp and tunnel unnecessarily, but again, that's his win condition. His win condition is I'm the killer, respect the killer, don't unhook in front of me, that type of thing. You know, I'm going to kill all 4 of you. I don't care how I have to do it. That's his win condition. That's his play style. Is perfectly valid. Hey guys, it's Chris, and today I thought I would do a game critique / breakdown here. I thought it would be fun to start doing some various gameplays from streamers. As a killer main myself, I find it interesting to kind of figure out what's going on in their heads as far as streamers, including myself. I'll be breaking down some of my own games, so I have plenty to learn as well, even though I've been playing for quite a long time. I have a soft spot for killer mains because I know how fucking hard it is. So anyway, we have ManFaceJay here. He has a game here on Coldwind Farm, and he's playing Blight. Now, I'm not some huge Blight expert. I'm not really that good with Blight, but either way, just a general killer gameplay, I think I can break down some things here and point out some things that I noticed. So we've talked about Jay before, a really good streamer. I think a recently made partner, so congrats on that, Jay, if you ever watch this. Really cool guy, and I think Jay's thing is he's become the killer, the streamer in the community who's going to just be camping and tunneling, and he's not ashamed of it, and that's the way it should be. I think, again, it's perfectly fine to do that. I think anything in the mechanics of the game is fair play. We don't have to follow some arbitrary survivor rule book. But at the same time, I will say, in some of Jay's games, the ones I've seen, because I watch all his YouTube stuff, he puts really good videos out on YouTube, and he gets a lot of salt in in-game chat, and there's a reason for that. I do think Jay's a great killer, but so I don't think he needs to do this as much as he does. But we'll get into that. We'll just go over this game. Either way, I'll link Jay's Twitch in the description below in this video as well. So I just pulled this off YouTube. I'm sure he doesn't mind people breaking things down as well. So let's jump in here. Let me jump over here to the full screen, and I've just kind of put myself over where Jay is. So if I move, you can kind of see here, if I move myself up there, Jay's just right behind me. He has a circle as well. So I just figured I would just cover that to make it a little cleaner here. So let me get that back in the right spot. So let's jump into this gameplay. Again, we have Blight on Coldwind. So here we go, and I'll stop and make some comments here and there. It's a fairly short game, not really that long, so hopefully this video is not too outrageously long.
Amazing, man.
So he's streaming here, starting off, doing what he should do. He's rushing around, checking the areas of the gens. Sees the Jill here. Kind of fakes this. See if she's there, takes the pallet. Which is good. Go ahead and get those pallets out of the way for later. Then he, I think he makes the smart move here to move over here to the David. He's kind of in a
backwards out of my loop.
Yeah, it's exactly what he did. But he comes back over here to this loop here, which is a little interesting. It was the right play in that sense because he had a pretty straight shot to David to get the hit. But he brings it back to this loop. And he's trying to make that turn. I know that you cannot, man. That's a hard turn, man. Now, there was a Steve right there. I will say this really quickly. You got David injured. And I know as killers you feel like, okay, I've hit somebody. I got to down them now because they're one hit to be downed. But he's around this pretty tough loop. You know, you got the L wall and T wall here in this kind of a jungle gym. And I think right there you had a free hit on the Steve. And this will actually come back in this game, and you'll see what I'm talking about as far as the Steve. I guess the point I'm making is there's always going to be weak links in these games. I don't think this is a Swift. I think this is maybe one or two. I don't think it's a Swift. I think it's all solo. And you could have went after the Steve there to kind of get a feel for his gameplay. Still very early. There's still 5 gens. So I think staying on this loop here a little long here is could have been different there if he went after the Steve. And you'll see what I'm talking about here shortly. But anyway, let's continue this loop here. Now, what I was going to say here about this particular chase is Jay is getting really good starting with his movement and his moonwalks and things like that. You can see that. But in some cases, he does it so fast that it really doesn't make a difference. It gives the survivor who is good enough to be looking back behind him and stuff enough time to see that he's just basically doing a 360. So you'll see later he does some really good ones where it's really effective. But I would just say a couple things there. Good turn to hit there. I would just say, just for loops like that, when you start the moonwalk stuff and where you're trying to hide your red stain, do it a little bit longer, just a little bit longer to make them actually react. Because if you do it too fast, they probably don't even see it, or they just see you literally do a 360 where you act like you're turning around, but you're still backing up. So that's something definitely that I need to work on for sure, because I do that type of movement. He's got Penamento here, so he's lighting his totems. So he's got David on a hook. 3 gens to go, and I think that was his first hook. Now he finds the Steve, and that's a close turn. It's hard to pull that off. Now this is actually a pretty good move by Steve. He went the other way, and he actually said nice play. That's what I do like about Jay, is he will say, as far as survivors, right there. So that was a good one. So if you go back right here for a second, let me just back that up just here. This is what I mean. You see how he turns around here to moonwalk, and he does it long enough so the Steve actually reacts. So he goes here, right there. Boom. He's got the Steve going the other way and gets the hit. So
much to deal with there, and you just
clearly, as he kind of says so himself right here, Steve is probably one of the weak links of this team. The David ran pretty good so far. The Jill we didn't really see enough. We will see Jill here in a minute. But this is what I mean about, you can enter these people and let them. They're going to go heal in most cases, especially solo queues. And so you don't have to really worry about that person that you let go, going and hopping on the gen. Obviously, better players will. They're not afraid to play injured, especially with dead hard. You got to know as a killer when to let go of some chases, and it's okay to hit and run to another one. Again, depending on the killer and circumstances, all that. But that was very early on. So now, again, he's got 1 hook, I believe. This will be his second with 3 gens to go. So he's kind of behind.
Turn around on the back of that one. It's crazy.
So I think you could see there.
Crazy. All right, they've just took out my Pentimenti-Wento.
I think you could see there that Steve was kind of the weaker link, which will come into play actually.
I'm pretty sure.
All right, so here he comes to the shack.
Might not be a plaything.
There's the Jill, and there's somebody else because you saw scratch marks. He tries to get the rush in the shack. I think he could have just went for an M1 there. I know if you're really good with blight, you can do that. He does break this pallet. I was going to mention something about a pallet here. Good read here. Obviously, she's cutting back, so now he's back on the Jill. Takes a couple pallets here. My thing is right here. I will, depending on what killer I'm playing and all that, will not respect pallets at times. He's already taken a couple pallets here from Jill. He knew. I think he kind of knew he couldn't make that lunge right there. So why not just stop and then break the pallet without getting stunned and save yourself a couple seconds? I'm just saying, just a minor thing, but especially with killer, you're on a timer and every little second counts. So I think a couple of those, the last one and this one, he probably could have avoided the stun. Of course, if it was somebody with a flashlight, that'd have been blinding him and all this other shit as well. He breaks her. He does zone her correctly there to keep her back there, but he lights to spin a minnow. Good hit here. All right, so this Jill chases. Now here's a crucial moment. If I back this up just a little bit, so he gets this hit. She goes and shack him. See if I can pause this on time here. Okay, you see Jill. He came through the window. He's still in chase with the Jill, and you see this Michaela. This is the first time you've seen her, and basically the last time until very end game. So Michaela's in here as well. So let's see what happens. He vaults, and he immediately focuses on the Jill. Now, it's good to go ahead and get rid of this pallet for sure. Get rid of God pallet. So he's going to follow Jill, and he just kind of ignores Michaela. And I'll talk about that in a second. It's good. Get rid of God pallet. And he decides here to go on after Jill. Now, I'll let this Jill thing play, and I did time this chase. The entire Jill chase does last about a minute and a half. It took him 45 seconds to get the first hit, so he's already hit her once. And it lasts about a minute and a half, which is way too long. So I'm gonna let this play out here, and then I'll talk about what I think it would have been a better idea right there.
Okay, so this is quite a tough map in general, this one. We might have to get a little bit campy just because...
So right there, so at a minute 12 into this chase, into the Jill chase, he's already saying, okay, we're going to have to get a little bit campy. We're behind, basically. They're good with pallets. They're throwing them down, and every single one of them. So what I was saying here is, you know, this chase is way too long. A minute 30 is way too long for a chase. You got to know as a killer. I'm not saying he doesn't know that. I'm just saying this particular game. But you got to know when to drop chases. I think if he goes back and he smacks that Michaela, I think that would have been a fairly easy, at least one hit, if not a down. You let the Jill go because I've already been running for a minute, no, I'm sorry, 45 seconds. So she knows she's a decent runner. She's going to pallet. She's going from tile to tile. I think if you go back and after you break the God pallet and you chase the Michaela there, you get her off of that gen because right now she's on that gen. He decided to stick with the Jill here, and now and he knows that she is back there on that gen. I mean, she's the gen jockey, obviously, in this match. So you already have 3 to go, which you're still okay. But once you get down to 2 and 1, you're starting to get into your timers really starting to tick. So let's let this play out, and we'll come back to that. Because here's the rest of this chase.
Well with the loops. You can see that they're crushing the gens. This girl has got no threat about dropping the pallets whatsoever. We're going to have to not respect them, should I say. We're going to have to legit just go for it. She didn't want a fucking dead hard there. Because now you
can tell she's... So again, that chase lasted about a minute and a half. I think it was a little bit longer, but a minute and a half, or just kind of round down, like a minute and 32 seconds or something. That's way too long, specifically around this pallet, and this will come back into play again. This area as well, and she didn't even throw the thing yet. So I think if I think this would have been a completely different type of game, probably the same ending or close if he would have gone after the Michaela. Probably got her down fairly quickly because you'll find out that she's also not the great runner that the Jill seems to be pretty good. So if you can't be afraid to hit these survivors and let them run off and know when to accept a chase and know when not to. So now he's basically saying at a minute 12 into the chase, okay, we got to camp. We already got to camp because they're throwing down pallets. It's hard to catch them. So I think he already realizes that he's been chasing the wrong 2 people is what I'm saying. So let's let this play out here.
There we go. Nice work on the tokens as well, guys. Doing really well with that.
Yeah, they're a very efficient team, for sure. I mean, they're always doing the rotation. They got somebody on the gen at all times. Comes over here. He almost gets a really good hit there. He almost gets the interrupt. He got there a little sooner, but again, that's because the chase was so long with Jill. He ignores the Steve again, and he goes back for Jill. I think he's really fixated on Jill. I think he just kind of wants her down. Yeah. So he goes back to get her off hook, being the injured one. She makes a mistake there. Clearly didn't look back.
Because of the way that she ran that there, that makes more advantage.
Because she's a fairly decent runner. So right there was clearly a mistake where she just wasn't paying attention. So this is where things change a bit. Takes you to the basement.
Right. So we're on the last generator. They've been clearing tokens left, right, and center as well, right? That means full effort.
Okay, so
we're going to make this difficult.
He decides here, he catches Steve going down. Now, Steve, he was already in another chase with David, so Steve's not doing anything wrong here. He's just going for the rescue like any survivor would, but he catches him. So this changes things a little bit. When he knows he's down to 1 gen now, so he's got to make a play.
Teamwork is unstoppable, right? That's why we're getting away with what we're doing here.
And he catches him trying to go in a locker because, again, he's kind of the weak link, and that's what I think he should have figured out earlier when he was on in the first time. So now you got 2 in the basement.
Cool. We should be able to block this, to be fair. It's quite a scummy thing to do, but it looks like we can block this if we position ourselves correctly.
So this is where I kind of have an issue. Not that he's camping or whatever. In this situation, it's actually not a bad idea if you want to secure at least 2 kills here. But again, that depends on your win condition as a killer, right? My win condition as a killer is if I pip. I do go for a 4K every time. I'm happy if I get a 3K or even a 2K. But I feel like the pip, at least the pip system, whether you like it or not, the emblem system, if I pip, I feel like that I've done enough to have played a good game, even if I got 1 or 2 kills. So for me, that's my win condition. If I pip and actually rank up as the system is designed, even though it's certainly far from perfect, I consider that a win. Jay considers kills a win, which is fine. That's been a debate in this community for a while now. You have people like True Talent, who's all about hooks. I'm trying to get 12 hooks, and other people who are trying to get 4 hooks and camp them on hook or whatever, and tunnel and everything they can just to get 4 kills. So I think that's fine, whatever your call is. So in his situation with his win condition, this is the right move because that other gen's about to pop. But I think he could have did it differently in the sense of early game, letting the Jill go. He would discover really quickly that the Michaela and the Steve, which he already had chased Steve and hooked him fairly quickly, that they are not the best runners as compared to how long it was taking him to chase Jill and David. So he gets those and focuses on them. Then you have a whole different game because they're going to go heal. You're going to save that gen, so he would still have probably 3 gens to go as opposed to 1 and now 2 in the basement. So I guess the point is we all kind of get, fixated on, okay, this is a pretty good runner. I want them to die. So you kind of get that tunnel vision, pun intended, as far as, okay, I'm going to make sure they die because they're a good runner. They've showed me up a little bit. They've stunned me a few times, whatever it may be. And he kind of hyper-focused on the Jill and let the Michaela just freely do gens and then didn't go back after the Steve, who was a fairly weak runner compared to Jill and David. So let's see what happens. So he's decided to camp and secure 2K.
Because of the mistake that they made.
And this is where I want to say really quickly, too, just to throw this out there. Because, again, I'm just trying to be fair. Because if we're going to call out toxic survivors, which I'm totally happy to do because they are, a lot of them, not everybody, obviously, we also have to call out some of the issue with some of these killers that camp and tunnel when they don't really need to. Again, you can do what you want, but if we're going to try to better the community and get cleaner games where there's not as much toxicity and shit talking in-game chat and teabagging and clicking and all that, we also have to address some of the killers that do it unnecessarily as well. And I think this was unnecessary only because of the early game play. But Jay says here, okay, we're going to secure a 2K because of the mistakes they made. Yes, Steve made a mistake there, but it was kind of luck that he came back because he heard the explosion on the gen or whatever when he was chasing the David, and if just a half a second later, and he wouldn't have seen Steve going down the stairs, and this would have been a completely different game. What I'm saying is this is unnecessary because if you would have earlier recognized and not left somebody on the gen freely to go right back to it and tunnel that gen, because that's exactly what they were doing, they walked away. He stayed on the Jill after breaking God Pallet instead of protecting that gen and going after Michaela, getting at least a hit on her, probably a down, as you'll see later. Then he wouldn't be in this situation. He would still probably have 3 gens at least if he focused on the Steve and the Michaela. So now he's camping here, and he openly says, I think it's pretty scummy.
No, we can't.
Now, he could have hit him here and just traded, but he's so, I think, focused on the Jill that he doesn't. He decides just to not hit him at all. He could have, obviously he's going to speed burst when he hits him, so that's why he's not doing it, and he would have pulled somebody off the hook, but he could have easily hit him and just hook swapped. He would still got 2K.
It could have been a 3, basically. That's why he's legged it.
So he could have just swapped there, but it shows you that he really wants that Jill to die, in my opinion. Yeah, he really wanted that hit there, really wanted, but he couldn't quite make that turn there. Blight's hard, man. Blight's hard to play, so I'm certainly not going to try to act like that I know everything about Blight. Now, right there, this is what I'll back it up a little bit. He's going after David now. He's got the 2 kills. Let me just back up a little bit. I didn't catch this the first time, but right here, he's going outside. He's trying to go outside, and as he turns here, you can see David just ran by. So he didn't see that. He still thinks David went out this window and went around somewhere, which is why he was trying to get out. So he now goes back to this window and tried to make a swing there in case he was coming back, and goes out that window. David is now on the other side.
Aggressive approach, what we just did. So I can imagine, yes.
But that's stuff you miss all the time. I've watched back my streams, and I see shit that, of course, I never saw live. Somebody finds David here. Good shot. Good shot. I never even knew he was there. So now he can get himself
reason why that happened, though,
a 3K at least.
They were so transfixed on doing generators that no one really got in the way early on. There, we did go out a little bit, leaving Jill on the hook.
So I just want to address that really quickly. He says they were so transfixed on generators. Well, of course, that's what they're supposed to do. They were definitely efficient, so you were in a tough spot either way in this game. But you also have a Blight who's has very good map pressure, and that's what I mean about I don't think he's went up to the other side of this map at all. He didn't check on any other gens because again he was so transfixed on the Jill in a minute and a half chase that I think he could have prevented a couple more gens from popping at least that early. And extended the game a little longer, which is what you're trying to do as a killer. Again, it goes back to the Steve and to the Michaela. If he drops the Jill chase early, he's got a hit on her. It only lasted him 45 seconds, a little longer. Then he has another 45 seconds or so to go after Michaela, probably get a down on her and a hook. That gen's also probably been kicked and not popped yet as well because Jill's now going off to heal. And I think, again, this goes back to you got to know when to drop these chases and go after the weak links. And it would have been a completely different game where he wouldn't have to do the camping at the basement or whatever. Maybe he does, maybe he does. You don't really know because it's going to change everything. But I do know, at least for a little bit longer, he has still 3 gens to go and probably has Michaela on the hook as well, who he's not even seen during this game except for literally glancing at her coming into the shack. So let's see how this plays out. So we go back here to this. So got to 2K.
That was it. It was
David drops the pallet. He's saying it's GG already, which essentially it is. But he's kind of harping on like their mistakes when I think it was more his mistakes because they were really efficient. Like the gens are done. And what I don't get here about this chase, as you can watch, he wants to bloodlust and smack him. He don't want to take a chance on the power. Good dead hard there. I don't understand just going back to this that he would have saved more time here. Now again, this game's already pretty much over, and he's probably going to get him either way. But you got to be able to break a pallet. This is a strong loop here. This is a strong pallet, and as you can see, it took a while. Just break the pallet, man. You can break. I mean, you already got the 2K. You've secured your 2K. And I know he wants to try to get to 3 or 4 now, but go ahead and break the pallet and you don't extend it that long. Make him go to a weaker area. You've got all these pallets are broke. Remember, Jill dropped all these pallets on this side of the map. You come around to the other side and kind of zone him on this side where he is. Break that pallet. He can't loop you this long. So there's times there to not break pallets and there's times to break pallets. But you also have a Blight who can rush break the pallet quicker. So I don't understand why he didn't break this pallet for a quicker down. Again, it just really don't matter at this point. He's going to get him anyway, regardless at some point with Bloodlust like he did, and at least get a 3K because he's already camped out the 2. But just pointing that out for anybody that's trying to play killer. There's times to break a pallet. There's times not to break a pallet. And I think that was one of those times early on in that chase. As soon as he dropped it, when he came back to it, break it, make him go over here in this dead zone.
If the team have been efficient on gens, towards the end game, you have to really get that camping in.
You don't really have to though. I think this is what I mean. There's times for camping. There's times for tunneling. There's times for slugging. I think slugging would have worked better here, and he wouldn't have to do the double camp there, and he would still probably got a good outcome. Because when you slug, you're going to make people get off those gens, but he never. In this game, I think Jay's mistake is he never pressured any gens. He literally never pressured any gens except for the one time he tried to get to the one with David and Steve. He got there a little too late, but that was because of the really long Michaela chase that lasted 1 minute and 30 seconds. He went into the shack. He didn't pressure that gen because he immediately left the shack. He didn't chase the Michaela and get her injured, so she would go heal or whatever. Maybe kick the gen if he had pop or something. Usually it's a bad idea to kick gens. It's a waste of time. But if it's really close and then you chase Michaela off and you got 2 injured, let them go off and heal and then kick it and let it regress a little bit in that case. So again, he's saying they made all these mistakes, but they played pretty good overall. But you had 2 weak links there as far as runners that he didn't focus on because he was transfixed on the Jill. He's saying they were transfixed on Jins. Well, that's their job. But he was transfixed on the Jill for so long that he kind of forgot about pressure and generators, and you have a blight that can run across the map really quickly. So he's watching the doors now. He's like, okay, I got a 3K here. Now he sees Michaela coming. He sees that she don't have time to get to the hook, so now he can go after her. And as you can see here, what I'm saying, and this is not really important as far as the game of what's already happened, but it shows you, look how Michaela runs. Michaela is not looking behind her.
All the way from the beginning.
He didn't smack her there because he was afraid that she would get a brush and go over there and pull him off the hook at the last minute right before he dies. So he kind of waits. Now he hits her, which is fine. But you can see the way she's running. She's not as good as a runner. No disrespect to anybody as far as, the Michaela. But you can see clearly that she's not the runner that Jill and David was.
It did. But they did them anyway. And then they still did gens.
And you see right here.
Like it's cray-cray.
Not looking behind her.
The efficiency of, not necessarily the efficiency, but this was the gen jockey. I've not touched this person all game.
So that's basically it. I mean, right there you have Michaela's first hook, but that really should have been her second hook because he ignored her on that gen in the shack. And again, I'm just kind of harping on it, but I think that was the big mistake Jay made as far as not taking control of this game and having to resort to camping in the basement. If he doesn't focus on the Jill there, he got rid of God Pallet, which is good, and he got rid of the pallets. That whole side of the map is free and clear of pallets due to the first runs. So now you go after Michaela, you get her off that gen. The Jill's she's already gone. She's gonna go heal more than likely. You at least got 3 gens still to go, and Michaela's now probably hooked, at least injured, and running off the hill herself. So she's now not on the gen. And then you continue with her, and then you can come back to the Jill and get her later. So the point of this is, know when to drop a chase. You can't be afraid to drop a chase and get on somebody else and find those weak links. Because especially if you have a blight. If you have a blight, a nurse, somebody like that who can really put a lot of map pressure on everybody. I think he would have found out a little earlier that the Michaela and the Steve were kind of the weak links in that team, and he could have really focused on them. Make the good runners go do gens. Make them go heal up and get on gens while you chase the weaker links, get them both hooked probably, and then they have to come off gens to get them, and then you got yourself... You're saving that time, you're extending the game, and you still probably have 2 to 3 gens to go as opposed to getting down to 1 gen so quickly because it comes down to that one long chase and a little bit with the David there as well. But that was more at the end of the game. So really that Jill chase is really the mistake Jay made. So while I appreciate where Jay points out in his videos and streams, because I like how he streams, he's a really good streamer, really entertaining. I like how he points out his thought process and what they're doing as survivors as well. And don't get me wrong, Jay will clearly say, I fucked that up, I made a mistake or whatever. But I just want to point out that killers make mistakes too, and that was the big mistake in this game is chasing somebody for a minute and a half early on. You've lost all the gens. You didn't pressure gens. Overall, it wasn't a great game. He turned it around because of kind of luck in finding the Steve because, again, he comes around that corner half a second later. He doesn't see Steve there. He's not worried about camping for a 2K. He's going to continue on with the David more than likely. So a lot of luck involved, and of course that's every game. You got some luck. You got RNG and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'll stop it there. I've been rambling way too much. This is way too long. But I wanted to break down this game because I thought it's really interesting to break down some of these games, and I'll do some of my own too because I make plenty of mistakes as well. This is not to pick on Jay or something like that. I really like the dude. I follow him on Twitch and all that stuff as well, and I watch all his YouTube videos because he does bring the salt. But you got to think about it. There's a reason he brings the salt because every game that I've seen, at least on YouTube, every single game, he's camping or tunneling to some degree, which is fine. Again, it's completely fine. I'm not saying it's wrong, but he's kind of become the A run or the JRM or whatever, or the noob of the killer side. You know what I mean? Is kind of what he's become. That's kind of his branding. That's his bread and butter. He loves the salt, and it is entertaining to watch. But in some cases, not all, in some cases, the survivors are right. He does camp and tunnel unnecessarily. But again, that's his win condition. His win condition is I'm the killer, respect the killer, don't unhook in front of me, that type of thing. You know, I'm going to kill all four of you. I don't care how I have to do it. That's his win condition. That's his play style. Is perfectly valid. There's nothing invalid about it, but there are mistakes that were made on his part too in some of these chases where that's not even necessary if he doesn't make those mistakes. So anyway, guys, I've been rambling way too long. We'll talk about more of this stuff on the next podcast as well, so be sure to check that out. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.